good.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good. How are you, Chris?
Welcome to the November meeting of the Parks and Recreation Board. If you could stand and say pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for turning out this evening. In your packet is a copy of the minutes from the October meeting. You've had a chance to take a quick peek at that. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Also moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Great. Tammy, you want to jump into a update from your department?
Sure,
That'd be all right?
absolutely. I'll talk a little bit about October,
Great.
one of our busiest months of the year.
October.
October. It's like 6 to 8 weeks of constant events back to back. We started off the month with the Fall Harvest event, which is over at the Willows, as you guys know. I know I've talked about it and shown lots of PowerPoints over the years. Another successful one. We had probably about 4,000 people in attendance. Our Citizens Police Academy, of course, they have their car counters as their parking folks, so we try to mathematically compute that. And fortunately, we had great weather, and we had great weather leading up to the event, so we didn't have any issues with parking in the open field or anything like that. But this was a big year for us. We had about 40 sponsors, vendors, businesses participate with us. So a lot of folks this year that actually were down in the picnic grove. It was pretty jammed with lots of vendors. Giving everything from brochures to doing crafts and activities, and we had cider and lots of good food choices and things like that. And then this year we also had a gem mining truck that came, where kids could sift through sand and get fancy rocks and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. Folks took to that. We also had a bull ride and pony rides. A fake bull, of course, and live pony rides.
Next year, a real one.
I don't know.
Not the kind of bull you see
No one
in
will
some
sign
of
the
those
waiver.
cowboy bars, so was it?
So, no. So it was a lot of fun, and they were able to regulate the speed and
Right.
everything to how that goes. And then we had bounce houses and things like that. And of course, the pumpkins were available back in near the Skunk Hollow Garden, above the garden. This year we did have a pre-registration for the large pumpkins, which actually were the size of the pumpkins that are sitting right there, because it had been getting so chaotic over the years of people coming in with their wagons and their strollers and just loading up on pumpkins as much as we've tried to regulate it over the years. But we did a pre-registration which worked out really well, and we created more of a quarantined area for folks to go in and claim their pumpkins, and it really worked out well. So we had a lot of
Good.
people who thanked us for doing that, because at the end of the day, the sponsorship money that we're getting to do the event is for the Radnor Township residents. So we can't just keep buying more pumpkins and buying more pumpkins to, provide everybody in the region with them.
So you didn't get any negatives on that?
No, we did not. We had a lot of, we had some folks that, they weren't residents and they were interested in getting a pumpkin, and obviously, but the alternative was we had the smaller ones that were there, more of like a cannonball size.
Yep.
So it was all a positive. We can't complain about the event at all, and really happy to continue to see it thrive. We also had the Girl Scout sing along and campfire event, so that happened the week after. On the 18th, it was the same day that a variety of different Girl Scouts came here to visit the Township building to earn a community badge, so they got to come in and learn how government works. And Commissioner Borowski was there and talking with them, and the Township manager and lots of other staff members. So in the evening, of course, they had their event over at the Willows. So we had another outstanding attendance here there with 150 folks, which was really good. So gave an opportunity for the Girl Scouts to interact with everyone and kind of share a little bit about what they do, and try to do some recruiting, of course, too, and get to enjoy a nice night around the campfire at the Willows. And then we also had the trick or treat at the Township building, which was a big hit. As usual, during the business hours, we have preschoolers come in and go through the building and receive treats and stuff throughout the different offices and areas we open up. And Tracy Prume in our department, she decorated. I think you guys saw it last month. Everything was really decorated throughout the Township building very festively. And then we had the Radnor Run, which was on a terribly rainy
Beautiful
day.
morning, yeah.
It was a horrible day, so definitely have to evaluate the future on that. Try not to have the event on such a rainy day because it was so.
When you figure that out, we'll go into business together.
I'm working on it. But I mean, there were like 600 runners and walkers registered, but the attendance was definitely impacted. We probably had about a third,
Of the normal.
maybe a half that actually showed up the day of the event.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, they made a contribution to the American Lung Association.
Right.
Really, that's what it's all about. So,
Good.
so great event, 42 years. It's been going on for a really long time. We also had the mother-daughter dance last weekend. The mother-daughter tea party. I'm getting ahead of myself with the daddy-daughter dance. That's coming up. And that was another sellout for us with 110 mothers and daughters, grandmothers and granddaughters over at the Saturday Club. So that's been a great partnership with us and with them. That's continued to blossom. So they had time to have tea and also do some crafts. And then we had a princess show with Anna and Elsa, of course, from Frozen. And once again, Tracy had the place decorated to the nines, and everything was very festive, and everybody had a great time. And there was an opportunity for pictures and caricature drawings and things like that. So, but another one of those events for us that sells out in about a day. But a great success for us too. So now we're gearing up for Santa's delivery. So, we're going to be taking the registration for that, and the gift drop-off will be here again the day after Black Friday. So we'll be doing that from 8 to 11. We'll probably continue to see numbers grow. Last year we had 1,200 gifts and about 500 households, so it's been on a steady pace year after year, and we have 5 engines and zones that go out, so we'll continue to coordinate that effort. It's pretty intense. A lot of folks in the different departments, obviously in the fire department involved in that one.
Right.
So we're excited about that again. Our phone's already been ringing off the hook this week for people wanting to drop off early, so we'll turn into Santa's workshop down there pretty soon. So we do have the daddy-daughter dance registration that'll be opening. It's not going to be opening until January, but that's one that does sell out quickly. But different this year than some of the previous years, we are going to be having the event at the Inn at Villanova. We worked out a new arrangement with them. They have a little bit of a larger facility. Sad to part ways with the Radnor Hotel, but want to try something new, be able to accommodate that hearty wait list that we get every year. So, we always end up with, 50 couples on the wait list, 100 couples on the wait list, and we've tried to strategically go through and pull out folks that haven't gotten to attend over the years that are Radnor residents, because it is a Radnor resident-only event, and accommodate them. But hopefully this year, with a little bit larger space, we'll be able to accommodate everybody. So I'm sure we won't be without growing pains in a new facility, but we're excited about the partnership with Villanova, so looking forward to that. And then we have our Mother-Son Superhero Challenge, which will be coming back. We're going to be operating that in a new facility over at Eastern University, so that's going to be new for us.
Because you had that at the rack last year.
Well, it was supposed to be at the rack, but since the rack was closed, we had moved it to the middle school.
That's right.
So, yeah, we moved it there. So our location this year we're excited about is with Eastern University. So
good.
happy about that and looking forward to it. So we're in the process of developing, those events and getting those ready. And then, of course, simultaneous to all of our programming that's going on, we have a lot of things that are up and running in the fall. A lot of preschool programs that are strong and robust, like the Soccer Shot Soccer, World Cup Junior Soccer Academy, preschool T-ball. I mean, all of those programs had probably 200, 250 people participate this fall. Men's pickup basketball continues to be strong in our tennis programming. So we have some staples that have been working out for us, and we're starting to think ahead into the winter months and the spring months, and believe it or not, summer too. As we start to turn the corner in the new year, we start thinking about summer camp and facilities and all that. And I know we are in the process of looking for a new home for Radnor Day Camp. Hi, Jim.
Sorry.
Right here. It's okay. So that's a bit of a big deal for us right now, because normally we would be in the planning for Radnor Day Camp, and we'd almost be starting our hiring process. But right now we're in the process of just trying to come up with a new facility. So we have some discussions with Hilltop Preparatory School that's going on, because we had met with the school district, and there's going to be some difficulty with the accommodations this year. Just at all the schools. I know there's a lot of work that's going on, and there's, I think, just a mix of different camps and things happening at some of the other schools like Wayne and Radnor High School. So we're looking for a new home. So if we don't find one, at some point we're going to have to, evaluate the viability of the program as we go on. Of course, we'll talk about the RAC here in a second, but the RAC could be a potential backup, but the camp would have to operate in some type of a change, because you don't have the classrooms, the art room,
Right.
the gym, swimming facility, things like that, in order to be able to accommodate it. So that's a big impact to us. So we're trying to navigate through that, and then of course the rest of our planning, of events and programs, and get those lined up and going. And then we're also working through and adapting a new online registration system, which has actually kind of been built around Radnor Day Camp, because it's a little bit of a different animal when it comes to registration and the online system. So we're working through that. I'm trying to navigate, how we go with that, and we're involved in some training that's going on right now, and trying to put some of that together. So we've got some things that are a little topsy-turvy, hoping to, get some good decisions going and, good outcomes happening over the next couple months, as we turn the corner into the new year, because things then get really busy once we start gearing up for spring events.
Okay.
So just to talk about the RAC a little bit, since I mentioned it, I know we had some conversation last month, and the township and the district are working on a short-term plan to get the facility open, which is great news. I know there's significant floor repairs that do need to be made over the next couple weeks. As a matter of fact, those started today. We were informed by Mark Brooks, the operations director for the school district, that those got underway. I know they are trying to sand down the poly balls that we had that were coming up on the floor, and work through trying to, I guess, alleviate some of the cupping that was happening on the floor, and then obviously repainting and then recoating, all in an effort to get the facility open by the 27th. So that's the date that we've been given for the opening. Now the floor work's not going to include
November.
Yes.
Wow.
And that floor work's not going to include any of the sub-base work that was originally quoted, as part of the plan, by the flooring company. And I'm not entirely sure if there's a drying system that's going to be installed to keep the humidity down. So we're going to learn a little more about that over the next couple weeks. And then, having the facility open on the 27th is going to be tough. There won't be much usage, but the great news is in December, basketball can, resume all of their usage. I know they're going to be using a lot more than they've used in past years, because they've lost some facility space at some other locations like Agnes Irwin. So whereas they would kind of share the facility a little bit more with the soccer club and some of the other in-season programming, they're going to be using a lot more time, which is good. So the facility being used is the key at the end of the day. So we're working through the process of that with them.
With regard to the RAC and the challenge we've had with the condition of the floor over there and the result that Tammy just told us about, do we need to worry about liability in any way with that floor or with the air quality in that gym? Is there any concerns about that we should make sure that somebody's checked off on from a liability standpoint?
Our hope is that the insurance claim will not be closed for at least a year. Because right now, was it 2 weeks ago we were over there, and there was like jelly coming up in some of the cracks there, which is the urethane.
Yeah.
So it should have dried by this time, but it's coming back up through there, which is very strange. So our hope is that we'll work with the school district and that we'll ask that the insurance carrier keep the claim open for a year, so that in case it does happen again, it's not just signed off on when this is done.
And that's more on the property side, right?
It is.
But we've had some odor issues over there.
There has been.
And is that ongoing, or? So I'm just want to make sure that we won't have a bunch of kids in there, and all of a sudden, after kids might have been there 2 or 3 times, somebody's not feeling well, and then they could come back at us or the school district. I'm not sure who holds that insurance policy, but
The school district does.
The school district does. So it's just a reasonable question I think they ask, and make sure we're I'm not an attorney, but make sure that everybody's checked off that, yes, this facility is good to go, and we don't believe it.
Are we doing any air quality testing?
There's discussion about installing a radon ventilation system in there, just in case whatever's under the floor. Not sure what's there, because it has an odor occasionally, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking about volatile, like VOCs and stuff like that.
With the
stuff. And
some of it's the polyurethane and some of it's a
Yeah.
tar that could have been originally installed on the concrete when it was installed, back in 1930, whatever, I guess, whatever.
Yeah, I would
was
assume
first
the more recent
put
stuff is
together.
giving off more of the VOCs, so.
I think the new stuff's water-based, isn't it? I mean, it shouldn't be giving off a lot. The new stuff shouldn't be. I don't know what.
I'm not sure what they're going to use.
It is. It's not an oil base, so the
Right.
coat. Yeah,
That's
the-
part of why it balls, unfortunately, because we have that at the high school too. Is the air conditioning being run? Because I know the last time I was in that building, it was really clearly very humid. Like the air conditioning wasn't on.
Well, we've been running it at the pace and the temperature in which the Miller Flooring instructed us to.
Okay.
So.
And I was there a
yeah.
while ago, so I don't know
So
what's
that-
happening now.
Yeah, and I know we were there a little while ago, a couple weeks ago actually, and it was cool. Like it
Okay.
felt
No,
like-
it was hot and sticky when I was in
Yeah,
there, so
no.
I'm glad to hear it's being run. Okay.
So, I'm not sure when that was, but I know as we were going along the whole process, the Miller Flooring had, asked us to make sure that we were having it set at a
Good.
certain temperature, so we were trying to regulate it in accordance to what their wishes were.
They actually have a sensor they installed in there that they can go back to their computer
Yeah.
and monitor what humidity levels were. But there is a concern, again, just because of the air quality, and that's something we'll stay on top of, that if it does decide to smell again.
But to double back to Chris's issue, my recollection is, at least as to the institutional, organizational users like the sports, they sign waivers that explicitly release the district and the property owner and the township. So to the extent there's concern from a legal standpoint, and I assume basketball doesn't, I know baseball we always did, that would at least give some insulation to the township and the district if there were to be a problem.
Yeah, I think we're going to be monitoring the facility, once it gets up and running, and we'll be there a lot, because the goal is that programming resumes too during the day, like during the school day, because we have robust programming that has been on hold, for, a long time. So, we have a lot of angry pickleballers that want to get back into that facility now that there's more courts.
It's scary.
Ball's looking angry.
So,
That's
no,
good.
they do.
One more
They got
They're
paddle.
Things they can throw it.
Between Mark Brooks, Tammy, Steve Norsini, and Steve Mills, they'll be working together
Okay.
to make sure that if anything starts to happen,
Right.
that they're right on top of it, so.
I'd love to be involved when you get to the point of doing a final inspection like it, November 27th, if that's the goal. I'm sure the school district and the vendor, contractor, and the district will go over there, the township will go over there. So anybody else from the sport is interested, I'm certainly interested. And if you don't think it's inappropriate, I'd love to be, included in that, just to kind of see.
Absolutely, yeah, we can let
how everything
everybody
is.
know.
It's really good to hear. I felt like it was our last meeting that the township and the school district have come together on working together to get it open. Was it our last meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so good.
Some progress.
Yeah, it's good news, because the sports community, like I said, Radnor Youth basketball, there's 1,200 people in the
Right.
program, kids in the program. And I know that they progressively, even when we were running the program, have been losing time all over, not only within the district, but within the private schools as well. So the need for that space is, make no mistake, it's huge. There's obviously a future viability of the building that we all have to discuss that
Right.
sits out there, but, there's no question that a gym is needed. Well, arguably more gyms, but we'll take
Well,
what we can
hopefully
get.
the word got out too about losing Conservative and why it got lost, so that
Yes.
people are a little more cognizant of that, and it's aware of what their kids are doing and not doing, those things, not dropping kids off. I don't know if they'll change anything or not,
Right. But we're also having some work done on the windows and the walls on the eastern side so that we can mitigate any leaks. So a lot of the gaps, the sealants are going to be redone there and some masonry work. So that's going to get started as well, probably Monday. So there'll be a lot of work that's happening. It's going to take a couple weeks to get everything to where it needs to be. And, I guess if we deviate from that that schedule, we do, but ultimately the goal is to get it open for for December 7th.
Right.
Saturday, December 7th is the first day that youth basketball kicks off.
Okay.
What would be a ballpark figure for replacing it?
The building in
Yeah.
that spot.
Yeah. No, just.
In the same spot with.
Yes.
with
I'm just
taking-
thinking, you know, like.
With demolition,
To redo. I mean.
a lot.
Think down the road, I'm just thinking down the road, if it continues to crumble, it has to be gone. What would
Yeah.
it cost, and would the parties?
It's a fair question, because I don't know if you've seen the condition of the building, but it's terrible.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know if you've all seen the pictures of the inside, but the way that the state that it's been left in over the years is terrible.
It was, from what I understand, not being here, the school district did not want that building.
No, I think, yeah, my
And
understanding is.
a lot of that,
yeah.
a lot of those conditions have existed since that turnover time. So I agree, there's gotta be a bigger look at this and see where you wanna spend your money at.
Well, I mean, the township has made a lot of improvements to the building as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
I mean, I was here when we took the building over too, so.
Now you gotta wait. But it's
Pardon?
it's a good discussion to have, because you know it's needed. I mean, I think that's a given.
Right.
So where's your best investment of money at?
I mean, I think the degree to which the township could have kept up the building is a discussion for open debate, I believe. I believe that is something.
I would love to entertain that.
Sure, absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Well, I think some of that discussion is probably gonna happen too when we start to look at the
Sure.
future and you know, maybe that location isn't the right location.
But to paint it as if you got it in terrible shape and there's nothing that you could have been doing over the years to keep it up I don't think that's appropriate.
I do, but again,
Sure.
I
No, there's
it
another
does not
time
to
that
be-
we can
I don't
talk
want the
about this
argument,
another time.
Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it is what it is. And for some reason, the township decided to take that. And there are water issues that exist around there, the ground, and
Yeah.
you
For
know,
sure.
when we went through the library renovation, you don't know what you're gonna get into, and we got into things that we found once they start digging in the ground that, I mean, you don't know whether it's better to spend new or not.
Yeah. No, it's a difficult area of town.
It is, and stormwater.
Flood last year was.
Yeah.
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 And there's a lot that's being worked on
Yeah.
in that particular area, so.
Well, thanks for the update on that, Tammy.
Sure. I mean, I'll get into some of the project updates when we get a little later in the agenda. The only other thing I wanted to talk about and acknowledge was that Monday night we did have the renaming of Veterans Park to Veterans and First Responders Park. I know we talked about it at our October meeting, and I know our township manager spent some time working with the American Legion closely with their support and their interest in the renaming. And excitingly, we got some money from Penn Medicine at Bob's leadership, $250,000 to Veterans Park, Veterans and First Responders Park from Penn Medicine, another $25,000 from the state, all to start working on that master plan that we worked so hard, putting together back in 2014. We had a lot of 2013, 2014. We had a lot of meetings, in terms of putting together that master plan. So this is finally some big steps towards that. And I know as we go along, we want to continue to engage the board as we start to take steps to put that together.
Great.
Is that the plan, Tammy? When we worked on that plan in 14, I was here for that, where we're like moving the sidewalk. Is that, are you gonna go back to that plan, or is it gonna really start new?
We're
with
gonna
the
go back
veterans?
to that plan. I think there's gonna be some modifications, because, I mean, that plan was $1 million plan
Right.
then, and that's quite a long time ago, in the construction world. But the plan is to make it celebratory and recognizing in some way, to the veterans. It may not look exactly like the concept in the sketch, but I think that's a starting point for how we're gonna go.
I think it will come close. Just in the last few days, I've had several contractors say we want to be a part of this. We want to donate whatever we can to help this work. So I think working with all of you, with Tammy, with Steve, both Steves, I think we can accomplish this with the money that's there. Because the veterans want to get engaged, and to me, they're good ones to sit at the table with somebody and say, can you help contribute? Then
Yeah.
the township sitting there. In Penn, this was right in their wheelhouse. They support veterans, they support first responders. So it's,
Excellent.
yes.
have some kind of a plaque acknowledging them,
We will do something that will acknowledge that at the end of the day. So our hope is that, like what we've done over at Otoricio Park, like with a large plaque recognizing with everybody's name from the Parks Board on there, the elected officials, and the other department heads, to recognize what's been done, and that all those folks that.
I was
that
referring to Penn Medicine, but.
Yeah.
Penn Medicine really is one that said, look, we don't want to, I originally asked them for $1 million. So $1 million, their name could appear on there, but since they came in, I wasn't sure what they were gonna come in with until that night. So, yeah, that doesn't buy them a name on, but they name on there with everybody else that will contribute. And we won't plant a Buckeye tree. A Buckeye tree. Kristen wanted to put it, help put the ceremonial planting.
It's a terrible taste in the mouth, man. Comes from Ohio, so I'm gonna help you.
That's all you need to know.
Nope.
But there's a beautiful one in Python Valley Park.
Yeah.
Just a beautiful one there, so.
It's still there?
Is there such a thing?
Buckeye tree.
I love buckeyes. They're fun,
Great.
they're thrilling.
Well, that's exciting about the new park name, and, however, as a board, we can help with the planning process on that. Obviously, we hope to be involved in that.
Is there-
Terrific.
Is there a possibility of holding one or maybe two of your meetings on the site? And this way you actually see hands-on.
Yeah.
You
Sure.
can look at it and say, we should do this.
Not in January, but.
Yeah.
Put a tentative date in there.
Yeah, April or June.
But what we're
May
looking
sound-
at,
May
Yeah,
sounds nice.
That's right.
what we're looking to do, the plinth that was bought 20-plus years ago, or it's down in Philadelphia in the construction yard, buried way in the back. We're gonna use that as the centerpiece here with this. And the contractor, we were down there 2 months ago, and he says he won't get it cleared to get all the equipment out of the way till February. So our hope is that at some point at that time, that will be like one of the first pieces to go in. It's a plinth, it looks like I call it mini Washington Monument. That will sit as the centerpiece there as the gathering place. Well, it's sitting down there. Well, when I first started here almost 10 years ago, they told me about it. We went down and looked at it. Like, this is great, but where do you put it at? Because it was originally going to go up the freeway, but the way the soil is and the way they were going to construct it, it would fall over. And I don't think you want that falling over right there at the entranceway to the 476 at Lancaster Avenue. So we thought this is a good thing, and then there's a few more of the monuments like we did for 9/11 that sits in there, that we can actually recognize some of the other wars, because there was a big tree planted for World War I. So I think if we can recognize Vietnam and one of the other wars too.
I think that's maybe what you were referring to as plaques to acknowledge those things, so people know what they're looking at,
Yes.
that type of thing. I don't think anybody at this table cares whether their name's on a plaque or not, so.
Well, we're going to use you a lot to help make this thing work, and so everybody can believe that you can do this work as a community, because there's a lot of folks in this town that I think we can utilize. And Tammy's built a lot of good relationships with folks too as well that they like what's going on.
Thanks.
That concludes my report, unless you have any questions.
Any questions for Tammy? Thank you. Other reports, Shade Tree, Claire, anything new from there?
Where did we last leave you?
I don't recall there's a whole lot.
Yeah, there's not much to report, except that, the new trees went into the Wayne Business Overlay District. So we were aware of all of that in September. And the Wayne Business Association worked closely with the Township, and that worked on that project together, and it went really quickly and really exciting to see that those trees have been all planted and all the paving and all the improvements. So in terms of shade tree, I wear a couple different hats, so I'll have to, in terms of shade tree, we did kind of weigh in on having the arborist or the landscape architect, or what was his name, Mr. That gave his expertise, not John. Anyone remember?
Jonathan Alderson?
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Mr. Alderson gave some expertise on what kind of plants would be, good in this kind of soil and in this kind of climate as we consider street trees and climate change. And so it turned out that to get the project done, we ended up putting all fall trees in. So there was a little pushback from Shade Tree that maybe it would have been better to have some spring planting type trees, but they're in. And as street trees grow, you're not expected to last for 50 years, right? Because they're in a finite amount of land, and but this plan would allow for not one, like blight or something where it would take out one type of tree. So the WBA is very happy, and Shade Tree is working on being happy.
Work in progress.
Is that fair?
Was there an estimated timeline of if they're not, I mean, I get them not lasting 50 years, so are they all supposed to kind of expire at different times though, so it's not kind of, I think that what was noticeable to people I heard from about it was that the town went bald.
Right, and that was a big,
Yeah, that was a shock.
It was a shock. But so they picked 6 different varieties, and there are 60 trees so that you won't lose them all at once. So that's the ideas, and they are guaranteed, I guess, to if they don't flourish, that they'll replace them. And so they did a good job. The contractors did a great job in the township, and we have a new paving up North Wayne. So
Claire, what prompted that?
What prompted what?
Like the decision to go in and take them all?
Oh,
'Cause
what
I've
prompted
noticed
it
too,
is
it's
it's
striking.
Yeah, what prompted it is that the WBA did an impact study to say how much, the business district gives to the township in tax revenues and in bringing people into the township. And it was looking dog-eared. So they've been actually working on it for about 3 years to work with the township to say, what can we do to improve just the general look.
Okay, so they just wanted it to look nice, or they thought that made it look nice. It wasn't like there were safety concerns or anything like that, or?
There
So
were
a lot of-
trees that were not in good shape.
Yeah.
That had to come down.
Okay, all right, so it sounds like there's a couple of reasons.
Yeah,
I'm just
so
curious.
there were a lot of trees that were just really dying and not in good shape, and the wrong species for this kind of climate, so they said, let's put the right ones in.
Good.
So
good.
that's, and.
For a day there, I was worried that we weren't gonna replace them, because I saw them all go down and I didn't see new ones go in, and I was like, wait a second, I don't like this.
And it was the day
downtown
before
area.
the fall festival
Oh,
too.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was like, it was a hot day.
Yeah.
My own husband, I serve on all these boards, and he calls me, what happened to the trees?
Yeah.
I was like, what, you
My
didn't,
wife texted me.
he's like, I haven't talked to you about this? Yeah, we've been talking trees forever,
Yeah, I have
so he
costs of
tells
the
you how much he
contractor.
listens.
Well, on the street. What are you doing?
But I think it is ultimately a win-win for our township and our business district. It takes a little massaging, I guess, of the right way to do it. Everybody has different ideas, so.
And it probably was most cost efficient to have a company come in once, take them all down if
It
most of
was.
them were, so I'm sure there were considerations like that.
Yeah. So that's all I have from Shade Tree.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Seeing no members of the board commissioners here, Bob, is there anything that we should know about from board commissioners?
They're still discussing the budget. We had recommended a 9% tax increase, which will go directly to fund fire and the fire operations here. It equates somewhere, don't quote me to the exact number, but it's between $98 and $100 a year is what the increase works out to be. And all that money.
For
will
the
actually-
average household?
For the average household, correct. So the board will begin the discussion and debate on that, of where we go. There are a lot of items that we asked them to look at, to pick stormwater projects, which they now have a list, so that'll be a project next year they'll work on. This potential sale of the sanitary sewer system, that's going to be looked at with the consultant, so that will begin the review process next year. They also have a sanitary sewer list that they have that they can debate and pick what projects they would like to do. So that's on their list. Parks and facilities maintenance and a long-term funding plan. I'd recommend it come to this board because you've already done a lot of work on it. And then make a recommendation and a priority of this is really what we should do. But I think the board, before you get that, the board will give that to you and with criteria to say, here's what we're looking for, so that you don't, I don't think they want to go through a whole lot of, have them do a whole lot of work and then submit it. And they says, well, thanks. It goes over there. That actually is something that will be actionable.
I think that's one thing that's going to be important, the leadership of this board, whatever that leadership might be, starting in January, along with the new leadership on the Board of Commissioners, get together early in the year so that we can get some direction from the Board of Commissioners about what they'd like us to be involved in and consider, so that one of the things that frustrates me sometimes is when you spin your wheels on something, spend a lot of time and effort, passion on it, and it may not be what they wanted us to be working on. So I'm hoping early in the year, whoever's running this board will, get together with leadership of the Board of Commissioners and get an agenda set for this board going forward, so we can be focused going forward.
That would be great, because I know CARFAC, there's some items we recommend go to them. Shade Tree Commission, there's still a discussion about what to do with the street trees, whether or not we turn those back, or if we don't turn them back, how do we maintain those for the long term? So that's a discussion which I think is going to go to Shade Tree to kind of work on that.
With the Board of Commissioners. Yes.
It would be interesting if they just, my recommendation is let you work together and lay a plan out, because sometimes if you have those meetings, you can spin in circles for hours. I think this is a good project, because the Shade Tree Commission has done a lot here and put a lot of trees in the ground in the last few years. An awful lot of trees are going back in. So
a lot of time too is communication. When the left hand doesn't always know what the right hand is doing, so it's really important. I know you guys work so hard to keep the commissioners up to speed on what they're thinking about and voting on, but sometimes things get missed. Sometimes information gets missed. For example, a good thing that just happened is the grant came in for the trail extension. So that was just awarded on.
Great.
So the trail extension from Radnor Chester,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that you guys might not know about, but it still is a park. So those kind of communications is really helpful.
Well, speaking of trees, I'm sorry, were you done on that topic? I was just going to ask what the latest is on Fenimore. I don't know if you guys talked about this recently.
So they are just wrapping up their stormwater management plan and a report, and they're going to have a final bid, not a final bid package, but like a first draft of the bid specifications package for our review in another week or two at the most.
Is that for Whitby, the whole thing, or just
the entire park? The entire
whole
park.
thing?
Yeah, with the exception of the pond and the functionality of the pond, because we don't, right now there's not a way to get stormwater to the pond, so that is a whole separate picture and a whole separate animal. If we sit back and try and make that happen, the park improvements will never get done. And at the end of the day, we still have a timeline we're working on to spend the bond money as well, because that was borrowed in late 15, so the time is ticking on that. So we should have a plan within 2 weeks that we start to review internally, and then we'll get moving through the permitting process, the bidding process, etc. So it's moving. Once we get that all finalized, obviously report back to this board if there's any substantive, type changes that you guys aren't
Is
aware
the
of.
plan, if I recall correctly, I don't know if there have been any changes to it, but we plan to take a bunch of trees out of there. Is that still?
Still part of the plan, because a lot of those trees they're safety issues. A lot of trees we did take down.
As I said, we already took a bunch of trees
Yeah, we
down.
did.
A lot of trees
Yeah,
down.
we're taking more, right?
Yes, there's a reforestation plan that goes along with it, so it's
Yeah.
not just,
Yeah.
I mean, all these projects aren't just taking trees down without replacing them, and it's important, that's like a definite rule of thumb on anything that we're working on. If anything, they entail planning more. So, some of the other projects that have come to fruition, like Fenimore and some of the other, not Fenimore, but, Philippone, we're planting more trees, to go along with that.
Thanks, Bob. Any other, school board, anything from your side, Andrew or Sarah?
Did you want to mention something?
I had a quick question about the bid packages, only because I have just joined. Does this committee usually review the bid? You review the bid packages and make a recommendation to the committee? Do you usually share multiple bids with the committee? I just don't know what the process typically is.
So typically, we'll review the conceptual design, the conceptual, overview plan of a project, and then, we'll work internally, and then with our consultants, obviously, to put the entire package together. Usually I come back and report on the steps and how it's going.
Okay.
But we don't usually come back and like really dig into the details, you know, we don't get into like, you know, comfort station siding colors usually too much or things like that, materials. But
Okay.
with that being said, if there are big changes that are happening, whereas we've gone through the process of vetting it out, like let's say with Fenimore, for example, we were just talking about that. Let's say the stormwater management plan that we originally discussed when we looked at the plan, when we looked at the concept plan, if that didn't work and something had to be moved substantially in the park, the playground, the pavilion, to what we looked at, if there was a big change, we'd come back and we'd take a closer look at that because we know that would be a big impact.
Okay. Great. I just wanted to
Yep,
understand.
absolutely.
School district.
Do you want to talk about it yesterday or conversation about it?
I would just give you all the heads up that the school district, I think you're probably aware from other conversations that we're looking at doing some renovations to the infrastructure on the athletic half of the high school. And that is actually on our board agenda this month. Our architect is going to come talk. The steering committee has a recommendation they've made. The architect is finalizing a proposal. So if you're interested in hearing that, or if members of the public are interested in hearing that, we meet Tuesday night in this building at 7 o'clock. And it will be
It'll be a pretty full.
It'll be a fulsome conversation
Yeah.
because it will be the full recommendation and budget and
Right. So get some
explanation.
popcorn and
Yeah.
settle in.
And no previews from me. You'll have to just see it at the meeting.
Okay, great.
Yep.
That's come together very quickly.
It's going to take a while. I mean, doing any kind of project like that between the land use approvals and then just phasing things, you know, the athletics, so there are seasonal issues. It's a school building, so there are issues with kids
But
being
just getting to a point where you're gonna see a proposal and the layout of it, I think is wonderful, how quickly that's happening.
It is,
Yeah.
you know, and kudos to the steering committee, other members of the public like you guys who stepped up and have, you know, been coming to really regular meetings. I think they've been meeting twice a month at least with the architects, and you know, before that with
Yeah,
for the feasibility study for
Yeah.
over a year.
We talked about it when I was in facilities last year.
So,
we're
yeah.
getting it, yeah. Good.
So a lot of hard work
Yeah.
has gone into it, a lot of tweaking and moving things around. So I hope, you know, people, if you can't make it, I hope you'll watch it on television because I think the proposal will be very interesting to see.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other reports I missed, or are we good? Okay, great. Let's move on to old business, if that's okay. The Peter Sanson Memorial Recognition discussion. Last month, we agreed that Claire and I would kind of form a subcommittee of this board to reach out to various constituents with regard to Peter's passing and trying to come up with an appropriate way to recognize him and his efforts for our community for so long. I think between the two of us, we spoke with the school district, the athletic director, the Katie Sanson Festival people, and Radnor Lacrosse Youth Group, as well as a preliminary discussion with Peter's wife Lynn about this. And I think our goal, when Claire and I first met to talk about how to kind of move forward from our standpoint, was to try and make sure that we reached out to everybody and hope to facilitate conversations so that it's not just one group trying to do one thing and another group trying to do another thing, but try and have a focused approach to it so that everybody was included in terms of their opinions, et cetera, and the family considerations were taken into account, and we'd have an opportunity to make a real substantial recognition for Peter based on his contributions. And I'll let Claire jump in and maybe share her thoughts, but I guess initially my thoughts are that we had some good feedback. It sounds to us like the school district has had some preliminary discussions, maybe not formally, about one of the fields over at the high school, and we've encouraged everybody to keep the communications open so that we can do this in a methodical process in a way that voices are heard and that the family would be proud of and supportive of. Claire, I'll turn it over to you.
Some of the consensus that I gathered was, and I did actually reach out to Jeff Bajukas and Sue Addis on the facilities committee because that dovetails kind of nicely if you are going to be moving forward the school district with some kinds of improvements on that side of the school district, that perhaps some of this naming could be matched with that. You know, nobody's really sure if you can actually change the name of a field, so maybe it would be Yankee Field, you know, with the Peter Sampson
Lacrosse.
entrance way, or, you know, whatever, how, that kind of thing. So that's, everybody sort of agreed, from Radnor Lacrosse point of view, they very much would like to have the naming be connected to the high school, because they feel that most of the people that he worked with, including the youth, will use that facility more than Memorial Park, which is another one that he was connected to. But that was that consensus. The family, they were, of course, very humbled, and but they're not in a big rush, and you know, what makes sense for everybody is lovely. And what was the other thing? I think that's kind of it.
That's kind of it. I think I'm not sure it's this board's purpose to direct it and have something done. It's just to be part of the discussion, part of the process, and, you know, make sure that at some point something does get done that will be impactful, and that the family can be proud of as well. So, you know, I think we'll try and stay involved in that, and certainly open to any conversation or questions from our board here on that. But you know, that's just kind of a quick update from the last 30 days.
One of the things we heard Monday night was that, you know, the Hometown Heroes banners that are throughout the town.
Yeah, Brett, thank you.
Marty's planning on doing one of those. He had the rendition. He actually showed it to Peter, and it was a Radnor Legend. So there's a Radnor Legend series. So I assume it's probably going to be somewhere in his neighborhood. But it was really nice, and, you know, nice tribute. So just as a, you know, information that you'll see that up, I'm sure,
Right.
at some point. I'm not sure how close to completion it is, or if we know exactly where it's going to go.
I did take a picture of it, if anybody, so Marty had to see it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, so that it would be like a banner.
Yep, that's
If
great.
you want to pass out.
Yeah, on one of the poles somewhere.
It's really
So,
great.
It
Yeah,
is.
it's just-
Oh, that's great.
Hopefully somewhere on Conestoga Road, right?
Yeah, right by
down
Lenore,
here.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
I know there's a
Great.
few of them down there in that area.
Thanks, Claire.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so.
Any questions or thoughts or comments with regard to that process?
What's the next step?
I think the next step is really to see what happens at the school district, because it sounds like it's going to be one school district property, and kind of see where they're going from that standpoint. So Claire and I would maybe just
Stay on top.
on top of that, and if Andrew or Sarah, if you hear anything that we should be made aware of, and I appreciate the email you sent to me about the process that's involved. If we missed that, if you wouldn't mind just kind of shooting us a quick email or text or whatever, that'd be great.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's actually just worth noting for the discussion that this is in our policy. So we have a policy on this. We have an AR about how to actually work through that, so.
I opened it. It looked.
Sure, yeah, I mean.
It looks straightforward.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
There's nothing.
Well thought
really-
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing arcane there, no curveballs. So, just to put that out there, so, you know, over time, you work through that process, it's mediates the conversation. Right? So,
What is the estimated time frame for the actual renovations? A year, 2?
Have you ever worked on big renovations?
Yeah.
Well, no, I go on look at
We're
the
looking at-
family's looking for time to heal. I got that sense that there's no rush with
Yeah.
that at the same time.
I don't think the high school project, I mean, I haven't seen the final time frame because I know the steering committee pushed the architect and said, can't you move this up? But I think it's reasonable to assume it wouldn't be done until 2022.
Makes sense.
Something else that, by reaching out to all these parties, is I made it clear that the township is interested in being through us, correct? That we part of that, you know, process, that we would like to work with the school district and any other parties.
Yeah,
And
we'd like
there's
to be
some-
involved as
Yeah.
as we can be, and to help and support the process. Great. Thank you. Tammy, we have B under old business, a review of township capital budget, parks and facilities, discussion possible recommendation. However, you and I had a conversation earlier today that based on what Bob told us about the Board of Commissioners' plans for 2020 and discussions about big capital projects like parks and sewers and stormwater, things like that, I think we decided it probably didn't make sense to have that discussion tonight and spin our wheels on something where there is no money allocated at this point in time, and it will make more sense to wait until we have a little better indication from the Board of Commissioners as to what they'd like us to do, per my conversation or my comments earlier. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
I do. I mean, I just want to emphasize, and I know I sent you guys the link to the presentation that I made to the commissioners, although I don't think it was entirely viewable in this room because the screen I don't think was capable of being seen, which was why I sent you the presentation also just so you could page through it. But I think it's really important to note that there are a lot of really serious things out there that do need to be addressed. And, you know, while I understand that, you know, we're going to be going through this process in 2020, I think it's important that, you know, that we're mindful of those items. I mean, there's craters sitting in parking lots, and, you know, some of the comfort stations like in Mauricio is in just terrible, terrible shape. And, you know, we've got deteriorating conditions with some of our playgrounds, and I just want to make sure that, you know, we kind of keep on the heels of this. It's also, you know, I mean, I know we looked at my list, and which I didn't see a sense of like printing that back out for you guys tonight because we're not really doing anything with it, you know, until probably, you know, on into the new year once we do get that direction. Hopefully, you know, we get that direction and understand, you know, funding. But I think it's really important, like Bob had mentioned, that we need a park-wide plan. Because I think there's still a lot of things that aren't even included on there. You know, like places like North Wayne, you know, North Wayne's has playground replacement that needs to happen there as well. And, you know, some of the other facilities, I just want to be mindful, you know, the Willows needs a bathroom, you know, desperately. At least I feel like it does. At least if it's a renovation to the previous one that was there, like when I started here in 99, there was the bathroom that was the old pool house right below the mansion. So, you know, I just would like, you know, just to encourage the board to just keep those wheels turning as you're out in facilities and, you know, reporting things and noting things. That way when those discussions do come about, we can have very productive and efficient conversations as we go through that. I know we had a little bit of a prioritization scheme that we kind of talked about with, you know, items that were, you know, impact to safety and liability, items that were, you know, affecting underserved areas of the township, things that have been on the list for a long time. So I know we want to continue to tackle it from that standpoint because it's important, and, you know, hopefully we can keep making progress. The good news is, though, you know, we still are working on the 2015 bond. You know, we still have Fenimore Woods that, you know, we need to complete. We still have Emlyn Tunnel that we're working on that's going to be, you know, completed hopefully soon. Fenimore and Beau Connor, you know, are about to be completed. Beau Connor's open. Philippon. Sorry.
Can I ask a question about
Sure.
that? Because a couple of neighbors asked me some questions. First of all, it's fantastic. You're doing, it's amazing, looking good. Will there be landscaping around the mulch dispensers?
Yes.
Someone asked me.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Someone asked me that looked really.
It does.
Raw and.
It does.
Okay.
So
One looks at Emlyn Tunnel, it looked fine in Ward 7.
yeah, right?
I used to get
Well,
mulch there.
the mulch, let's not get started on the mulch
Yeah, you don't wanna
discussion
get me
because I think
started.
that's gonna
But
fire
it's
Well,
bad topic for me.
I just wanted to ask the question because I know it's in there and.
It is, and so
Yeah.
a top tier of that block is gonna come down.
Okay.
And it's gonna have a smaller capping system on it, so
Okay.
it looks a little more aesthetic, and it will
Get some trees
have
around.
some, yeah, it will have some screening and stuff that's built around it as well. I know we're working on that as we, you know, wind down the project there and, you know, work through the closeout.
Okay, and then the other question was the painting of the pickleball on the pickleball court, great, and then the painting on the tennis courts. How does the township see, or how do we see the actual nets and things being stored, being provided, not provided?
So in working with the groups, when I say that I mean like the residents,
Yeah.
really there's been there's an armada of residents that are part of the pickleball groundswell.
And it's growing.
Yes, and their request was obviously to store nets in
Yeah.
the storage units that are there in both of the bathrooms, which we'll work on providing key and, you know, that way they have
Combo.
accessibility. And then if it's programming that we're having there, obviously our instructor will be coming with a net.
Okay.
You know, I gave some thought to portables, you know, that they make a portable system that can be wheeled around, but I don't think that's safe, and I also think that people will damage it, just seeing what we see at, you know, the parks, unfortunately, things that go on. And,
Right.
We don't want it to be an impediment also to the tennis players, so it would be a situation where they'll have access.
Will it be like the nets that we had at the rack? You know,
They'll be certified
So, you know, you put them, you just put them together, but they kind of fold up and put them into a bag. So that's what they're envisioning?
Yes,
Okay.
that was their desire, and they, you know, that was, in getting the 4 courts on the tennis courts, you know, they knew they were either coming with their own or they were gonna borrow from what we have, so
Okay.
we'll work out a system on it.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. So, but just, you know, with, like, as I was saying though, I mean, we still have projects to do. We also borrowed more money in July to get the 2 basketball courts done, Cowan and Mauricio. So those are 2 projects that are gonna move along this year as well. So it's not like there's no work being done and no progress on park improvements. We certainly have some great things to look forward to.
And I apologize, I did not get out, as I promised I would, the list of park assignments to try and update that and have people maybe decide what they wanted to be involved with and make some changes. So I will make sure that I get to that over the next week and get that out to everybody so that you know, we can pick our parks and just keep a focus on 3 or 4 parks, each one of us. And Sarah, you guys are welcome to be involved in that, but I know you've got a lot on your plates anyway, so I'll include you in an email, but don't feel you have to take parks, or take 1 park if you want to, or something like that. So certainly your call.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tammy.
Can I ask, sort of become a ritual now after 3 years? What's the latest on Tunnel?
Yeah.
It's coming.
I saw some
Yeah,
fencing there. I got very
absolutely.
excited.
Yes, it's coming along. So we expect the building to be delivered on the 9th. So we have fencing set up in order to protect it and secure it. We did go out to bid, and unfortunately we didn't have any bidders. But we did have a guy that came in that said he was trying to get his bid in, but his computer froze. So we're in the process of working out and negotiating with him as we move forward on that. So it's likely that we'll still be on schedule potentially to maybe have an award on November 25th at the BOC. So if not, then we have another meeting on the 9th. We have another meeting on the 16th. So at one of those 3 meetings, we hope to award to a contractor.
The fencing that's there now? I'm sorry, Sarah.
No, go ahead.
What's the fencing there
So the
now?
fencing that's there now will secure the building. So the building components are going to arrive on the 9th, regardless of, you know, how things are moving. It's coming from Romtech, which is the company that's supplying the building. So it will get stored in that area. And as that area, as the building gets developed, that area will also become, you know, staging and equipment and things like that as well. I'm not sure that it'll all fit within that area, because ultimately that's all going to become closed off once the construction process starts. But it will be able to house a lot of the equipment, and like I said, you know, the building components will all go right into that area. So we've had some messaging going out on behalf of the township just to talk about the restrictions to parking. Obviously, it's a big lot people use for SEPTA. They use it, I think, just as overflow from, you know, the neighbors and things like that. So we're trying to communicate with folks so that they know that it's now it's tighter. There's some restrictions, and there's going to be more restrictions to follow.
Do we have a sense of why there weren't any bidders? Is it just too small a job to be worth it for people?
I don't know. We had a lot of folks at the pre-bid, so I'm not sure. I don't know if it's. I think winter work is tough. You know, I think a lot of, you know, construction, there's a lot going on, and I'm not sure how hungry some of the folks are. But I do believe the winter might have been a little bit of a turnoff, and we have an aggressive schedule we're trying to fulfill as well to get it open before the sports, you know, obviously start up over there. But the good news is
to see how your bids come in for your facilities, because with ours we've seen an increase in what the estimates are, just because there's so much work in Philadelphia.
Our architect told us to expect that all the projects that they've done recently, the bids are coming in high. That the job market's very good. It's a good economy, and in a good economy, you're going to pay more for the work to be done.
Good for Philly, but
So
not
we-
for all of us with pricing.
If we end up with a contract with the contractor that sits there, that's interested, this contractor actually did Valtech buildings previously, so can put us in good shape with someone who has experience too, at least on this particular type of building. So I'll have an update, and as soon as we know and it's moving, if we're gonna, have an award or there's more progress, I'll let you guys know.
Thank you.
Item C, update on parks projects. We talked about most of the park projects. Tammy, is there anything we missed, or is there any specific projects any of us would like to hear more about? Claire and I had a quick conversation a couple weeks ago about West Wayne Preserve, and can you, I'm not that familiar with it, so can you maybe just kind of give me a quick ABC on, is there anything going on at the West Wayne Preserve, or?
Not as of now. The designs are just coming in right now for what that was going to be, which
For
will be part
stormwater
of that
management
stormwater
side?
management.
Mhm.
The original plans years ago that were developed with boardwalks and that, but that's no longer part of this.
Mhm.
There is some contention about the tap trail, whether it goes through, whether it doesn't. So that's a discussion that the board is going to be having in regards to that. What we can do is, if you wanted in a meeting in January, we can have February, Meliora, who's doing the design, actually come here and talk to you about
That'd be
their
great.
ideas are, access to the trails, because I think some of the commissioners in that area are concerned with. There will be, I think right now, 3 additional access to the trail, and with no parking, that's problematic. And I know there are some that believe, and I don't know where this rumor got started, that there was going to be parking put in the West Wayne Preserve, which I don't know where you would put parking.
Well, the consultant made that suggestion Monday night as an option.
But
So I tried that.
that's already been played out.
I know, but that's where that comes from in those focus groups. That's where that.
All right, that'd be great, it'd be interesting to hear
Yeah.
about that, if we could
Yeah.
arrange for that, in the early part of the new year.
Probably be good too to talk about Cowan Park, because Cowan's going to be looked at stormwater management as well. So what the timeline is for that, and then, because I think that one, based on any improvements, you have to wait and see what's gonna happen with the stormwater management. You don't wanna install it, and then a year later you tear it all off, it wouldn't make much sense. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe Meliora, just on that note, can talk about parks in general and any impacts. I would just make it all encompassing.
sure.
Okay. Great. Any other questions from our board about our projects? Okay. New business, nothing on the agenda. Does anybody have any new business they'd like to discuss this evening? Okay. Seeing there's no public, I don't believe we have any public participation this evening. I guess one thing I will say to this board is we have one more meeting this calendar year, and maybe give some consideration to the new year. Every year leadership for our board is elected by this group, and so anybody that's interested in thinking about leading this board going forward, should give some consideration. Bill and I are obviously open to conversations, answer questions, et cetera, that type of thing, and Tim, you and I kind of had in the past, I never know whether it's something we should do in December so we're ready to hit the ground running in January versus doing it in January. Personally, I think it's something we should reorganize, or at least identify leadership for in December, so that the new leadership team can get started, especially since the Board of Commissioners, we may be looking to them for some direction next year. If you or Bob feel differently about that, or if anybody on this board feels differently, we should wait till January. I think I'm fine with that, Bill. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
No, I think it makes sense to at least talk about it in December. And we always get stuck in that limbo land of not having a board, not having leadership officially at the end of the year, and then we come here and do a caucus before the meeting to elect the leadership, and I think you probably...
And how effective is your January meeting if you're doing that?
Correct. I think you probably I don't know if there's any rule prohibiting, but you probably prospectively look into that in our December meeting and not have to do it in January.
Any thoughts from your side?
I think in December sounds good.
Okay. Anybody else thoughts
Fine.
about that?
Sounds good.
That makes sense.
Great, okay.
Can I ask just also a point of clarification? Because Andrew and I are liaisons from the district, just so I know, are we supposed to vote on leadership? Us personally, I don't know that we're necessarily technically members of the board. If we are, I feel like we should probably ask our board how we're supposed to cast our, like, I just don't wanna, I don't wanna step on any toes or.
Your seats are voting.
You are voting
Okay.
members of this
Okay.
board, to the best
Okay.
of my knowledge, and always have
Sure.
been.
Yes.
Okay.
But I think Sarah's additional point there is also, I think, well taken, that we are also representatives of the board. So, you know, I think it would behoove us to, you know, make sure that we've got a bead on, you know, how the board is, you know, considering or.
We don't need a school board vote
No.
necessarily,
Right.
but I think we respect our
Nothing
co-board members the
official.
way you respect yours. So
Sure.
if you could give us a heads up if there are people who are looking to be leadership, so we can at least kind of caucus and
I don't know
not
if there-
violate Sunshine Act laws.
Yeah, I
with
understand. I'm not
calling
sure
people.
there's a ability to give you a heads up on that, because until we get to that point next month,
Okay.
when, typically what we've done for the last 4 or 5 years is, this is my second year as board chair, and I had 2 years as board vice chair. Typically, the current leadership would leave the room and allow the rest of the board to have a conversation about who else might be interested, et cetera, so that nobody felt like they can say what they wanted to say,
I got it.
how they felt about leadership, et cetera. And I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of Bill, but we went through this last year, and I think we're happy to serve in these positions, but we're happy to be just members of this board as well, and we're open to new, and I always think new leadership is a good thing when you've had the same person there for a couple of years. So we're very, and you know, Bill, maybe you can jump in, but me personally, I'm very open to staying involved, not staying involved, you know, that type of thing going forward. That's how we've done it in the past. We can talk about it as a group and see how we'd like to do it, but I think until we actually get into that meeting,
No,
and
that's
people
helpful.
maybe raise their hand and say, hey, I would be interested in being chair or vice chair, something like that.
Right.
It's not one of those you're gonna call, but, so, you know,
No,
different
it's
boards
very
handle
low-
it
yeah, it's
differently, and
very
some
low.
people, there's campaigning
Yeah.
behind the scenes and
No.
that.
I think we've had a consensus.
I've never seen
It's
campaign.
more like you take it. No,
We-
you
we-
take
we
it.
haven't- we haven't needed
Hot
to be
potato.
terrible.
You wouldn't be at the caucuses, so your name doesn't
Didn't
come
agree
up.
to-
Defend yourself.
That's how they get stuck with meetings.
Yes,
here.
exactly.
No, I think you've said it all well, and
Okay, no, that's helpful, and then we just
Yeah.
need to give people the heads up
Yeah.
that
Sure.
we're gonna vote
Yeah.
according to our conscience. And I
Yeah.
think that's fine, I just wanted to know if there were a heads up we should be giving our board meeting leader.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Jim's right, it's been more of a, gonna take one step backwards
Right,
kind of thing.
exactly.
Got it. No, that's fine.
So, okay. Is there anything else that anybody would like to bring up or discuss this evening? Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Tammy, thank you for the time you put in.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the t-shirts
Yes.
as well. And
Enjoy.
I will get that email out about park representations, et cetera, over the next week.
Great.
And we have a good Thanksgiving, and if you can try and, the date in December, I believe, is the 11th
For
for our meeting, the 12th.
12.
So Thursday the 12th, it'd be good to have a quorum, and if everybody can try and make it, I know it's a holiday time, we'll try and keep the meeting short, but if we can discuss board leadership so we can hit the ground running for the new year, that'd be great. So maybe just throw that into your calendars now as well. Great. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks.